had to kind of crouch down in a ball or put
rising out of the Pacific. It's huge waves sweeping away everything in its path.
What's about the situation for you when this magnitude...
There are days in human history that pass quietly, and then there are days that leave scars on the planet itself. Days that begin like any other morning. People wake up, trains run on time, children go to school, the world breathes normally. But beneath the surface, something is already wrong. This is the story of one such day. A day when the earth shifted. A day when the ocean turned into a weapon. A day when humanity came terrifyingly close to witnessing the end of everything it had ever built. This is not a story of myth. This is not a prophecy. This is not imagination. This actually happened. On the morning of March 11th, 2011, Japan was calm. The sky was pale. The air was cold but peaceful. Millions of people went about their lives without fear. Japan, after all, was prepared. It was one of the most disaster-ready nations on Earth. Earthquakes were not strangers here. Buildings were designed to sway. Emergency drills were routine. Warnings were fast. Systems were precise. Japan trusted its technology, and for good reason. No one imagined that within minutes, all of that confidence would be tested. At 2:46 p.m. local time, deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, something ancient moved. Two massive tectonic plates, the Pacific Plate and the North American Plate, had been locked together for centuries. Pressure had been building silently, slowly, relentlessly, and then the earth snapped. The earthquake that followed was not ordinary. It was not strong. It was monstrous. A magnitude 9.0, later revised to 9.1. Making it one of the strongest earthquakes ever recorded in human history. The ground didn't just shake, it roared. Cities swayed like paper models. Skyscrapers bent but refused to fall. Roads split open. Power lines snapped. For 6 endless minutes, the earth would not stop moving. 6 minutes is an eternity when the ground beneath your feet has turned into liquid. Inside offices, people crawled under desks. In homes, families held each other. In hospitals, doctors struggled to keep patients alive as equipment crashed around them. But Japan endured. Buildings stood. Casualties were low. For a brief moment, it seemed like Japan had won. But the earthquake was only the beginning. Far out at sea, the ocean had already begun to rise. When the seafloor lifted violently, it displaced billions of tons of water. The ocean didn't explode. It didn't splash. It stood up. A silent wall of water began racing toward the Japanese coastline at jet-like speeds. This was not a wave you could surf. This was not a wave you could outrun. This was a tsunami. Japan's warning systems activated instantly. Sirens screamed. Phones buzzed. Television screens flashed emergency messages. Tsunami warning. Evacuate immediately. Move to high ground. People ran. Some escaped. Some hesitated. Some believed the seawalls would protect them, as they always had. They were wrong. When the tsunami reached the shore, it didn't crash. It consumed. A black wall of water, debris, cars, ships, houses, and fire poured inland. Entire towns vanished in seconds. Homes were lifted and smashed like toys. Trucks floated like leaves. Boats landed on rooftops. People ran until they couldn't. And then, there was nowhere left to run. The tsunami reached heights of over 40 meters in some areas. Sea walls, once symbols of human confidence, were erased. Rivers reversed direction. Fields turned into oceans. Cities drowned. In less than an hour, thousands of lives were gone. But the deadliest danger was still coming. Along the eastern coast of Japan stood a facility designed to power millions of homes. It was considered safe, advanced, fortified. The Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. Engineers believed it could survive earthquakes. They believed it could survive tsunamis. What they did not plan for was the perfect disaster. When the earthquake struck, the nuclear reactors shut down automatically, exactly as designed. Control rods dropped. Fission stopped. The plant survived the quake. Backup generators activated to keep cooling systems running. Everything was still under control. Then the tsunami arrived. A wave higher than the plant's protective walls slammed into Fukushima. The seawater flooded the backup generators. Power went dark. Cooling systems failed. Inside the reactors, temperatures began to rise. And when nuclear fuel overheats, it doesn't forgive. Engineers worked desperately in darkness. Batteries drained. Pressure built. Hydrogen accumulated. Without cooling, the reactors were ticking bombs. Outside, the world still didn't understand what was happening. Inside Fukushima, they knew a nuclear meltdown was no longer a possibility. It was approaching. Over the next hours, hydrogen explosions tore through reactor buildings. Concrete shattered. Radiation leaked. Japan was now facing something it had sworn would never happen again. A nuclear disaster. The ghost of Hiroshima had returned. Governments around the world froze. If Fukushima completely failed, radioactive clouds could spread across continents. Water supplies could be poisoned, oceans contaminated, food chains destroyed. This was no longer Japan's problem. This was a global threat. And yet, most of the world went to sleep that night unaware how close they were to catastrophe. Because what followed next was a race against time, physics, and human endurance. A race humanity almost lost.
When night fell over Japan on March 11th, 2011, darkness did not bring silence. It brought fear. Across the northeastern coast, entire towns had vanished. Fires burned where streets once existed. Survivors searched for voices in the ruins. But miles away, behind thick concrete walls and shattered steel, a far greater danger was unfolding. Inside Fukushima Daiichi, the fight to save the world had begun. The reactors were no longer producing power, but they were far from safe. Nuclear fuel does not stop generating heat just because a reactor shuts down. It continues to burn, silently, relentlessly. Without cooling, temperatures rise rapidly. Water boils, pressure builds, metal weakens, and eventually, fuel melts. The engineers inside Fukushima understood this better than anyone on Earth. They watched gauges spike upward. They listened to alarms scream. They felt the plants slipping beyond their control. Power was gone. Generators were drowned. Batteries were dying. Every minute mattered. Radiation levels began to climb. Not high enough to kill instantly, but high enough to shorten lives. The men inside knew the truth. Staying meant exposure. Leaving meant catastrophe. And so they stayed. Later, the world would call them heroes. At the time, they were simply workers, engineers, technicians, fathers, sons, making an impossible choice. They would later be known as the Fukushima 50, but in those moments, they were alone. Hydrogen gas began accumulating inside Reactor 1. When nuclear fuel overheats, water splits into hydrogen and oxygen. Hydrogen has one fatal flaw. It explodes. At 3:36 p.m. on March 12th, the explosion came. A thunderous blast ripped through the reactor building. Concrete walls disintegrated. Steel beams bent outward. A white cloud rose into the sky. The world saw the footage, and panic spread. Japan's government tried to stay calm. They spoke carefully. They reassured the public. They insisted the reactor core was intact. But inside the plant, they knew the truth. The situation was deteriorating faster than expected. Then Reactor 3 began to fail. More hydrogen, more pressure, another explosion. This one was stronger, darker, more violent. Debris rained down across the facility. Radiation levels spiked sharply. Workers were injured, and still, they stayed. Reactor 2 followed. Cooling systems failed completely. The core was exposed. Fuel rods glowed white-hot. Molten nuclear material began to pool at the bottom of the pressure vessel. This was meltdown. Real, irreversible, unforgiving. But the nightmare did not stop there. Beneath Fukushima lay a terrifying possibility. A chain reaction of failures. If molten fuel burned through containment, if multiple reactors breached simultaneously, the explosion could dwarf anything humanity had ever witnessed. Some scientists feared a blast powerful enough to make large parts of Japan uninhabitable. Tokyo, a city of 35 million, was at risk. The Japanese Prime Minister was informed. So was the United States. So was the world. Evacuation zones expanded. 20 kilometers, 30 kilometers. People left behind homes, pets, memories. They didn't know if they would ever return. Many never did. At one point, the Japanese government quietly considered a worst-case scenario, evacuating Tokyo itself. It would have been the largest evacuation in human history, and it was dangerously close to becoming reality. Inside Fukushima, options were disappearing. Normal cooling was impossible, so they turned to desperation. They would flood the reactors with seawater. Salt water would permanently destroy them, but destruction was better than annihilation. Men manually opened valves in high-radiation areas. Some received doses close to lethal limits. They worked knowing their future health was being sacrificed minute by minute. No applause, no cameras, no certainty of survival, only duty. Helicopters attempted to drop water from above. Radiation forced them back. Fire trucks were brought in. Water cannons blasted into reactor cores with desperate hope. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. For days, the situation remained on a knife's edge. Molten fuel threatened to breach containment. Spent fuel pools overheated. Another explosion could have changed everything. And all the while, the world watched. Markets trembled. Flights were cancelled. Countries tested radiation levels. The Pacific Ocean carried contamination far beyond Japan's shores. The planet itself had been wounded. Eventually, through sacrifice, improvisation, and luck, the reactors stabilized, not safe, but contained. The world exhaled. Humanity had stepped back from the brink, barely, but the cost was immense. Over 18,000 people dead or missing from the earthquake and tsunami. Hundreds of thousands displaced long after the explosions faded, after the cameras moved on, after the world began to believe the danger had passed. The real fear remained hidden, because Fukushima was never just about one nuclear plant. It was about what almost happened next. Behind closed doors, scientists ran simulations. They They modeled worst-case scenarios, and what they saw terrified them. If even one more system failed, if one containment barrier collapsed, the disaster would no longer belong to Japan. It would belong to Earth. At the heart of the nightmare were the spent fuel pools. Above each reactor, massive pools held tons of used nuclear fuel rods. These rods were no longer powering reactors, but they were still dangerously radioactive. They required constant cooling, and Fukushima's cooling was failing. Spent fuel pool reactor 4 was especially dangerous. It contained over 1,500 fuel assemblies. Some estimates suggested its radioactive inventory was greater than the fuel inside the reactor core itself, and its cooling system was gone. If the water boiled away, fuel rods would ignite. Zirconium cladding would burn. Radioactivity would escape freely into the atmosphere. No containment, no filters, no protection. This would have been Chernobyl multiplied. Worse still, an explosion in one spent fuel pool could destabilize the others. A domino effect, a nuclear chain reaction for reactors, for fuel pools, failing one by one. Internal reports warned of a possibility so extreme it bordered on the unthinkable. A radioactive release large enough to force the evacuation of eastern Japan, including Tokyo, including regions housing tens of millions. Had that happened, Japan as a functioning nation might have ceased to exist. The global economy would have collapsed. Air travel over the Pacific would halt. Food exports contaminated, oceans poisoned for generations. Yet the public never heard this. Governments feared panic. They spoke softly. They used careful words. Behind the scenes, they prepared for disaster. The United States quietly moved naval assets away from radiation plumes. Nuclear experts were flown in. Military evacuation plans were drafted. This was not a drill. At Fukushima, engineers focused on one thing: water. Keep the pools filled. Keep temperatures down. They improvised pipes, built new lines, risked lethal exposure. Some workers exceeded radiation limits, considered safe for an entire career. In a single week, they were told. They volunteered anyway. Slowly, painfully, the temperatures dropped. Water levels stabilized. The chain reaction was stopped. The planet was spared, but the damage was done. Radiation leaked into soil, into water, into life itself. Areas became forbidden zones. Nature reclaimed abandoned cities. Wild animals wandered through empty streets, a silent reminder of what had been lost. Years later, studies revealed the long-term cost: increased cancer risks, psychological trauma, generations displaced, not just from radiation, but from fear. Fukushima shattered a myth, the myth that humans control nuclear power. In truth, we only borrow it, and nature decides when to take it back. And yet, this was not the only time the world almost ended. It was not the first warning, and it will not be the last. Fukushima was not an isolated incident. It was not unique. It was simply the latest reminder of how close humanity lives to the edge of extinction. Because long before that day in Japan, there were other days. Days when the world survived, not because of wisdom, but because of luck. In October 1962, the world came closer to nuclear war than at any other time in history. The Cuban Missile Crisis. For 13 days, two superpowers stared at each other across the abyss. Missiles armed, bombers fueled, submarines hidden beneath the ocean. One order away from annihilation. On October 27th, a Soviet submarine was trapped underwater by U.S. forces. It had lost contact with Moscow. Its captain believed war might have already begun. On board was a nuclear torpedo. Protocol required unanimous approval to launch. 2 officers agreed. 1 man refused. His name was Vasily Arkhipov. By saying no, he may have saved the world. Years later, another silent hero would do the same. In 1983, a Soviet early warning system reported 5 incoming American nuclear missiles. Red lights flashed. Alarms screamed. Lieutenant Colonel Stanislav Petrov was on duty. He had minutes to decide: launch a retaliatory strike or trust his instincts. He chose to wait. The alarm was false. The world survived. These men did not act out of certainty. They acted out of doubt. And doubt, that day, saved humanity. Technology has made us powerful, but power without restraint is a loaded weapon. Every system can fail. Every sensor can lie. Every human can make a mistake. And sometimes, the most dangerous moments are the ones we never even notice. In 2007, a US B-52 bomber accidentally flew across the country, carrying live nuclear warheads. For hours, no one realized. If that plane had crashed, history would be different. In 1999, a Norwegian research rocket was mistaken for a nuclear missile by Russian radar. President Boris Yeltsin activated the nuclear briefcase. The countdown began. Only last-minute clarifications stopped retaliation. Again and again, the world has brushed against extinction, not with intent, but with negligence. And every time, we convince ourselves that it will not happen again, that we are smarter now, that systems are safer, that humanity has learned. Fukushima shattered that illusion. It showed that even with preparation, even with advanced technology, even with discipline, one unexpected variable can unravel everything. Nature does not negotiate. Earthquakes do not respect safety margins. Tsunamis do not care about confidence. And nuclear reactions do not forget forgive error. So why do we continue? Why do we build systems capable of ending the world? Because energy feeds civilization, because power fuels progress, and because stopping would require humility. The true danger is not nuclear energy. It is human arrogance, the belief that control is permanent, the belief that disaster is someone else's problem, the belief that tomorrow is guaranteed. Humanity has always feared the end of the world. Ancient civilizations imagined floods, fire from the sky, angry gods, final judgments. But today, the most dangerous threats are not myths. They are real, they are measurable, and they are accelerating. For the first time in history, human beings possess the power to end civilization without intending to, not through malice, but through momentum. Climate change is no longer a prediction. It is happening now. Oceans are warming, ice caps are melting, sea levels are rising, storms grow stronger, droughts last longer, wildfires consume continents. Civilizations are fragile systems. They depend on stable weather, predictable harvests, reliable water. Remove stability, and collapse follows. History proves this. The fall of ancient empires often followed climate shifts, crop failures, mass migrations, conflict. Now multiply that by 8 billion people. But climate is only one front. Another danger grows silently in data centers, laboratories, and code. Artificial intelligence. Not evil, not conscious, just powerful. AI does not need hatred to cause harm. It only needs misalignment. A system optimizing for efficiency without understanding consequence can reshape economies, warfare, and truth itself. Autonomous weapons, deepfake propaganda, automated decision-making. Once released, control becomes illusion. Then there are biological threats, engineered pathogens, accidental leaks, natural mutations. COVID-19 offered a glimpse, a mild rehearsal for something far worse. Global travel spreads disease faster than detection. Healthcare systems collapse under pressure. Fear spreads faster than facts. Society fractures. And beneath all of this, nuclear weapons still wait. Thousands of them, silent, ready. Mistakes are still possible. And time does not eliminate risk. It compounds it. The terrifying truth is this: humanity has survived not because it is wise, but because it has been lucky. Luck does not last forever. Yet, there is another truth. Every near extinction has also revealed something else. Resilience. Choice. When the world almost ended, humans stepped forward. Engineers stayed inside reactors. Officers refused to launch missiles. Scientists warned instead of hiding. The same species that creates danger also prevents it. The future is not written. Extinction is not inevitable, but survival is not guaranteed. The question is no longer, can we destroy ourselves? We already know the answer. The real question is, will we choose not to? The world did not end. Not on that day in Japan. Not during the Cold War. Not during pandemics or near misses. Again and again, humanity has stepped back from the edge, not because extinction was impossible, but because survival won by inches. When historians look back at the moments that nearly erased civilization, they will notice something strange. The final outcome was never decided by machines. It was decided by people. A technician who refused to leave a reactor. An officer who questioned in alarm. A scientist who spoke when silence was easier. These moments were small, private, almost invisible, yet they shaped the fate of the planet. The end of the world does not arrive with thunder. It arrives quietly, through ignored warnings, through shortcuts, through overconfidence, and it is prevented the same way, through responsibility, through doubt, through restraint. The greatest danger humanity faces is not technology. It is forgetting that technology reflects us, our values, our priorities, our flaws. Nuclear power is not evil, but it demands humility. Artificial intelligence is not malicious, but it demands wisdom. Scientific progress is not dangerous, but it demands ethics. Civilization advances faster than maturity. That gap between power and wisdom is where extinction lives. Fukushima taught the world that safety margins are illusions. Every near extinction has also revealed something else. Resilience. Choice. When the world almost ended, humans stepped forward. Engineers stayed inside reactors. Officers refused to launch missiles. Scientists warned instead of hiding. The same species that creates danger also prevents it. The future is not written. Extinction is not inevitable, but survival is not guaranteed. The question is no longer, can we destroy ourselves? We already know the answer. The real question is, will we choose not to? The world did not end. Not on that day in Japan. Not during the Cold War. Not during pandemics or near misses. Again and again, humanity has stepped back from the edge, not because extinction was impossible, but because survival won by inches. When historians look back at the moments that nearly erased civilization, they will notice something strange. The final outcome was never decided by machines. It was decided by people. A technician who refused to leave a reactor. An officer who questioned in alarm. A scientist who spoke when silence was easier. These moments were small, private, almost invisible, yet they shaped the fate of the planet. The end of the world does not arrive with thunder. It arrives quietly, through through ignored warnings, through shortcuts, through overconfidence, and it is prevented the same way, through responsibility, through doubt, through restraint. The greatest danger humanity faces is not technology, it is forgetting that technology reflects us, our values, our priorities, our flaws. Nuclear power is not evil, but it demands humility. Nature does not care how prepared we feel. The universe does not reward confidence, it rewards adaptability. The future will test humanity again, with storms stronger than memory, with machines faster than thought, with choices more complex than ever before. The next near extinction may not come from one event, it may come from many small failures stacked together, and yet, hope remains. Not naive hope, not blind optimism, but earned hope, because humans learn, slowly, painfully, but they learn. After Fukushima, nuclear safety changed worldwide. After pandemics, global monitoring improved. After near wars, treaties were written. Progress is uneven, but it is real. Survival will not come from perfection. It will come from awareness, from remembering how close we have come, from refusing to normalize danger. The question is not, will humanity face extinction again? It will. The question is, when that moment arrives, who will stand in the control room? Who will question the alarm? Who will refuse the order? Who will stay when leaving is easier? Because the end of the world is never stopped by heroes and myths. It is stopped by ordinary people making extraordinary decisions when no one is watching. The world almost ended, not once, not twice, but many times, and each time it survived.